Why were you not appreciated before 1966?
I thought I was.
By the time you get actual winning of it, are you sort of numb? You are.
Your name isn't called, and I don't know what that...
Hollywood once glittered with bright lights, where legends were built as flawless icons. But behind that glamour, few knew the darker truths that only insiders dared to whisper. And Lee Marvin, the tough star and a war veteran who bled on Saipan, was the one who tore away that dazzling curtain. Before his death, he unexpectedly revealed a list of 7 actors whom he considered the cruelest in Hollywood's golden age. His revelation sent chills through the industry. A so-called screen hero who had tried every way possible to dodge World War II duty, a movie idol bragging of having been with over 1,000 women treating them like playthings, and even a celebrated figure of loyalty exposed for blatant infidelity, forcing a mistress to end a pregnancy in secret. Who were those 7 names, and why did Lee Marvin only dare to speak the truth when death was near? 1. Charles Bronson, the cold man known as Hollywood's most unpleasant Lee. Marvin once told a Variety reporter in 1971, "Working with Charles Bronson is like talking to a wall. At least a wall knows how to stay silent, but he radiates an energy that makes the whole crew suffocate." That remark was quoted everywhere and became one of Marvin's most biting criticisms toward a colleague. Bronson, the familiar face of the Death Wish action series, was remembered by audiences as the embodiment of toughness. But within the industry, he was notorious as the most unpleasant man in Hollywood. The Los Angeles Times even published a commentary in 1980 calling him exactly that. The reasons went beyond his hot temper, stretching into scandals that left many shaking their heads. First came his marriage. Bronson married actress Jill Ireland in 1968, and at first the press dubbed them Hollywood's steel couple. But the reality was far from glamorous. Ireland later revealed in a private chat with Michael Caine that Bronson's jealousy was obsessive, to the point of controlling every phone call and outing she had. Neighbors in Bel Air often heard shouting matches and crashing furniture. Rumors even claimed that Bronson slapped her during a Beverly Hills party just because she smiled at a male colleague. That bitter marriage ended in a noisy divorce, which the press described as a battle as fierce as Bronson's own action films. On set, his temper created fear. While filming The Dirty Dozen in 1967, Bronson allegedly threatened a lighting technician for accidentally pointing a light the wrong way. One crew member told Hollywood Reporter, "He grabbed the technician by the collar and growled that only the light could shine on him, not on anyone else." Bronson was also accused of discrimination. In 1974, during Breakout, he outright refused to act alongside a Mexican actor, declaring publicly, "Audiences come to see me, not them." The remark, printed in the New York Post, sparked outrage in the Latin community, but Bronson remained indifferent, keeping his lead role while leaving his colleague humiliated. Politically, he faced backlash as well. In the 1970s, while the anti-war movement swept across America, Bronson publicly supported hardline measures. At a press conference in Chicago, he said, "We need an iron hand to end the chaos, not weak chants on the streets." That stance alienated him from many artists, but earned him praise from some extreme conservative groups. Lee Marvin, as a hardened veteran, despised pretense and arrogance. Working with Bronson on The Dirty Dozen, he quickly saw through Bronson's tough exterior as empty. Marvin tried to chat with him between takes, but Bronson responded with cold stares, even once saying, "I don't need friends here." From then on, Marvin saw him as soulless, often mocking him openly in interviews. Bronson's chilling presence unnerved many. One director said on CBS Evening News, "Bronson doesn't need to shout or break things. He just sits still, and the crew feels strangled by the pressure." That dark aura, coupled with his scandals, made Bronson not only Marvin's enemy, but a figure Hollywood itself kept at arm's length. Chapter 2. Robert Mitchum, the carefree star Shimumosh known for drink and scandals. On the night of September 1st, 1948, Los Angeles police raided a small Laurel Canyon house, known for wild parties. Inside, Robert Mitchum, then one of Hollywood's brightest stars, was caught smoking marijuana with actress Lila Leeds and 2 other men. The next morning, headlines exploded. The Los Angeles Times ran a front-page photo of Mitchum being led away, head bowed, cigarette still in hand. The incident was called Hollywood's first drug quake. At the time, Americans viewed cinema as a pure sanctuary of heroes. Mitchum had just risen with Out of the Past, 1947, touted as the new face of post-war masculinity. His arrest shocked the nation. The New York Daily News called it a betrayal of an idol, while Time magazine declared, "If Mitchum can be caught with drugs, Hollywood has lost its sanctity." Mitchum was sentenced to 60 days in Los Angeles County Jail. Photos of him in inmate uniform, eating with other prisoners, haunted the public. Though RKO later tried to whitewash his image, painting him as a victim of a moral witch hunt, the scandal left a permanent stain. It was the first great Hollywood drug scandal of the post-war era, signaling to audiences that behind the stage lights lay a darker world. Alcohol deepened his downfall. On River of No Return, 1954, director Otto Preminger repeatedly cut scenes because Mitchum fell asleep on set. Colleagues said he sometimes drank 2 bottles of whiskey before filming. A 1955 Variety article described him as an actor living more on alcohol than on scripts. His careless attitude drove directors mad. While shooting Not as a Stranger, 1955, with Lee Marvin, Mitchum mocked Stanley Kramer, calling him a morality teacher. Marvin, who valued acting as serious craft, was insulted by Mitchum's disdain, leading to tension. Marvin publicly slammed him as lazy and disrespectful to audiences. Mitchum also stirred outrage with offensive remarks. In a 1969 Esquire interview, he belittled minorities and mocked civil rights. Though the magazine later edited the issue, the damage was done. He was branded backward, out of touch with the changing America. Politically, he angered many by backing U.S. military presence in Vietnam. At a 1967 Chicago press conference, he declared, "We must crush the chaos with an iron hand." CBS aired his words, sparking fury among left-leaning artists, including Marvin, who had seen war's horrors firsthand. Mitchum's personal life added more shadows. His marriage to Dorothy Spence was tumultuous, with tabloids hinting at domestic turmoil, though studios silenced such stories. To the public, he was the charming rebel. But behind the scenes, he drowned in alcohol, drugs, and chaos. Lee Marvin once said sharply, "A soldier never sleeps in battle. An actor should never fall asleep on set." But Mitchum thought it was normal. That summed up why Marvin placed him on his blacklist as someone who betrayed the seriousness of cinema. The 1948 arrest, mixed with years of reckless behavior, forever tied Mitchum's name to scandal. He remained popular with audiences, but among peers, he was often seen as the destroyer. 3. Telly Savalas, the peacock of vanity, obsessed with spotlight. In the late 1960s, Hollywood thrived on grand war films. Among them was The Dirty Dozen, 1967, which became a classic. But behind the camera, it also became the stage for one of the most infamous clashes between stars, Lee Marvin versus Telly Savalas. From the start, Savalas irritated the crew with odd demands. He insisted lighting always highlight his bald head so it gleamed on screen. A lighting technician told Hollywood Reporter in 1967 that this cost them nearly 40 extra minutes every morning. Savalas also demanded the camera pan to his face, even in scenes meant for others. When reminded, he snapped, "Audiences pay to see me, not some nobodies." His vanity extended off-set. At London's Dorchester Hotel, where the crew stayed, Savalas threw parties and forced staff to call him Mr. Kojak, even before the Kojak series existed. One waiter told the Daily Mail, "He walked in like a king and we were just servants to entertain him." At home, his self-centeredness left scars. His ex-wife told the Los Angeles Times in 1974 that he controlled even trivial matters, from meals to how the children greeted guests. "We weren't a family," she said bitterly. "We were an audience trapped in his endless performance." Tensions with Marvin climaxed during a barracks action scene. Savalas deliberately stole Marvin's camera spot, turning Marvin's close-up into a background shot. Furious, Marvin shouted, "This is a war film, not a contest to see who shines brighter." Director Robert Aldrich had to halt filming and place security guards to prevent a fight. Savalas was equally difficult with directors. On Kojak, 1973, he pushed writers to give his character more heroic lines and savior moments. A scriptwriter told Variety, "He didn't care about the story, only about whether he looked cool." Another scandal arose during Capricorn 1, 1978, when he insulted a young Jewish actor for standing in the wrong spot. "You don't deserve to be in the same frame as me." The New York Post reported the outburst, fueling criticism, but Savalas brushed it off as media tricks. Lee Marvin later admitted on CBS Evening News, "I fought real battles on the front lines, but rarely did anyone make me want to explode like Telly Savalas. He was so self-obsessed he saw all of us as just background props." If Savalas was the image of a vain peacock who viewed the world as his backdrop, the next figure on Marvin's list was a very different kind of icon. Number 4. John Wayne, the false hero who avoided World War II. In the mid-1940s, when America was engulfed in the flames of World War II, newspapers were filled with images of young men lining up in New York and Los Angeles to enlist. James Stewart left behind Hollywood glory to fly bombers for the U.S. Air Force. Clark Gable volunteered after the tragic death of his wife, Carol Lombard, during a fundraising flight for the military. Even Henry Fonda donned a Navy uniform, leaving the studios behind. But while Hollywood gave its strength to the war, John Wayne chose a different path, finding every reason possible to avoid service. Documents published by the Los Angeles Times in 1943 revealed that Wayne filed several deferment requests, citing family difficulties and an acting career that was at a critical stage. Republic Pictures, the studio holding his contract, was said to have quietly lobbied for his exemption. A former assistant producer named Harold Stone recalled seeing a fax sent to the War Department that bluntly read, "If John Wayne is drafted, the studio will lose millions of dollars." What enraged the public most was how Wayne used the war to boost his own image. While his peers endured Normandy shelters or Pacific battle camps, Wayne signed lucrative new contracts. Stagecoach had made him a star, but it was the war years that cemented him as America's heroic face. Films like Flying Tigers, 1942, and Back to Bataan, 1945, painted him as a fearless soldier, though in reality, he never once set foot on a battlefield. Lee Marvin, who was shot in Saipan, saw it as betrayal. In a 1965 interview with New York Times reporter Michael O'Connor, Marvin said, "I watched Wayne in uniform on screen and it boiled my blood. I lay in a naval hospital for more than a year with a bullet through me while he became the nation's hero. A man like that I cannot respect." Beyond avoiding the war, Wayne was infamous for divisive remarks. In the 1960s, during the rise of civil rights and anti-war movements, he aligned himself with hardline conservatism. In a 1971 Playboy interview, he declared, "The Native Americans didn't defend their land, so whites had the right to take it." He also said he did not believe African Americans were ready to be treated equally. These words sparked outrage, driving many colleagues away. On set, Wayne had his controversies. In 1956, while filming The Searchers in Monument Valley, Mexican actress Dolores Del Rio revealed that Wayne often mocked her heritage with harsh remarks. Journalist Richard Schickel later wrote in Time magazine that Wayne sometimes leveraged his power to pressure young actresses into binding contracts under threat of losing their roles. Another shocking detail came from the set of The Conqueror, 1956. Wayne reportedly ignored warnings about filming in Utah, a site of prior nuclear tests. Later, dozens of cast and crew, including Wayne himself, developed cancer. Many believed he knew of the risks but stayed silent to keep production on schedule, further tainting his heroic image. From draft dodging to exploiting wartime fame, from inflammatory statements to questionable actions on set, John Wayne's real portrait stood far from his silver screen heroics. To Lee Marvin, he was a pretender, one who elevated himself at the cost of others. The next name on the list sparked even more controversy: Frank Sinatra, the glamorous powerhouse entangled in some of Hollywood's most shadowy connections. 5. Frank Sinatra, the arrogant star with mafia ties. In the mid-1940s, just as America was recovering from war, a new music fever swept the nation. From New York to Chicago, a warm voice and striking blue eyes mesmerized audiences. Young women screamed and fainted. This was the Sinatra craze. But behind the polished image lurked the hidden hand of Italian-American organized crime, which used Frank's fame as cover for laundering, smuggling, and even manipulating Hollywood. Sinatra's name was inseparable from figures like Lucky Luciano, Sam Giancana, and Carlo Gambino. At that time, Las Vegas was emerging as a gambling haven. Crime families poured money into hotels and casinos, needing a glamorous face to draw middle-class Americans. Sinatra was perfect. As a star performer, he helped launder millions through shows at the Sands Hotel in Tropicana. A declassified 1977 FBI report even noted that Sinatra received large envelopes of cash after concerts, which quickly funneled back into Giancana's hidden accounts. He was rumored to be directly involved in shady dealings. In 1952, Italian police in Rome discovered suitcases of contraband transported via Sinatra's private plane under the guise of musical equipment. A young singer, Joey Russo, allegedly got dragged into this network. When police raided, Russo was caught and his career ended instantly, while Sinatra slipped away thanks to a fake diplomatic permit arranged by mob lawyers. Russo faded into obscurity, while Sinatra still performed at Madison Square Garden as if nothing had happened. Sinatra's private life was just as turbulent. His marriage to Ava Gardner, hailed as a golden Hollywood couple, was reportedly filled with jealousy and volatility. At the Beverly Hills Hotel in 1953, Sinatra smashed a bottle against a wall after seeing Gardner talking with director John Huston. A waiter recalled to the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, "Ava was in tears, and Frank shouted he would ruin anyone's career who tried to steal her." Gardner later admitted in her diary that Sinatra's rages left her paralyzed with fear. Perhaps the darkest rumor was that Sinatra once pressured a young actress to end a pregnancy. In 1964, journalist Shirley D'Angelo hinted in Variety about a rising star whose future was destroyed because of Frank. Though her name was never revealed, many suspected she had been signed to MGM. She vanished from Hollywood soon after, leaving behind unanswered questions. Sinatra's temper also made journalists wary. In 1957 and at Miami's Fontainebleau Hotel, he reportedly slapped a Miami Herald reporter for asking about mob rumors. Though widely covered, the story was later pulled under pressure. Colleagues said working with him was difficult not for lack of talent, but because he turned sets into stages for his ego, arriving late, walking out early, and forcing crews to bend to his schedule. Lee Marvin, who knew the harsh discipline of war, despised this arrogance. At a Palm Springs party in 1966, when Sinatra arrived nearly 2 hours late, then left after just 15 minutes, Marvin reportedly told a friend, "He survives thanks to the shadows backing him, not his voice. A man like that, I cannot respect." Sinatra's secrets revealed that Golden Age Hollywood wasn't only glitter, it was also controlled by unseen hands. A golden voice could escape any consequence through hidden networks, while victims quietly disappeared. And yet, even after Sinatra, Marvin's list continued, with one of Hollywood's most notorious ladies' men. Tony Curtis, the Playboy idol, addictions, and emptiness. In the 1950s, as Hollywood searched for a male heartthrob to rival Marlon Brando and James Dean, Tony Curtis burst onto the scene like a storm. With his handsome face, perfect build, and disarming smile, Curtis was hailed as Hollywood's prince. Studios saw him as a money machine, and the press praised him as the man who charmed every eye. But behind the glow lay scandals that led Lee Marvin to scornfully call him a walking doll. Curtis openly bragged of being with more than 1,000 women. His love life stretched from A-list stars to unknowns. His first marriage to Janet Leigh seemed picture perfect, gracing Life magazine covers. Yet behind the smiles, Janet reportedly endured heartbreak. In 1960, during Spartacus, Curtis was caught with actress Christine Kaufman, nearly 20 years his junior. The news exploded, and within 2 years his marriage to Leigh collapsed. He then married Christine Kaufman when she was only 18, despite heavy criticism. The New York Times called it the most shocking Hollywood marriage of the 1960s. Not long after, Kaufman left, leaving behind 2 children. His third marriage, to Leslie Allen, also ended due to his uncontrollable affairs. By the 1970s, Curtis was rumored to trade roles for intimacy with young hopefuls, derailing many budding careers. One of his most notorious scandals surfaced in 1982 in Las Vegas. The Chicago Tribune reported that Curtis, then in his 50s, was involved with an 18-year-old actress. Public outrage followed, but he avoided consequences thanks to lawyers and connections. The young woman vanished from Hollywood, her career gone, while Curtis carried on. Curtis also spiraled into substance abuse. In the disco-filled 1970s, he became a regular at Sunset Strip bars. In 1974, filming of Lepke was halted for 3 days because Curtis disappeared on a binge. A crew member told the Los Angeles Times, "He stumbled onto set looking beaten down, forgetting lines, unable to stand for a take." Yet studios tolerated him, as he still drew crowds. Later in life, his reckless past caught up. Curtis suffered from severe lung disease, carried oxygen tanks, and looked nothing like the once dashing star. Still, rumors persisted that he secretly dated women decades younger, further tarnishing his image. Lee Marvin never respected Curtis. At a Beverly Hills party, hearing Curtis boast of his conquests, Marvin sneered, "He's just a hollow product of Hollywood, shiny outside but empty within." Their conflict turned public in 1968 at a charity event, where Curtis arrived drunk and late, prompting Marvin to storm out. He later told Variety, "I cannot share a stage with a man who treats audiences as a joke." For Marvin, Curtis embodied Hollywood's decay, where good looks excused infidelity and indulgence was ignored for the sake of box office sales. But Curtis wasn't the name that infuriated Marvin most. Next came someone even more obsessed with power and stealing the spotlight. Number 7. Yul Brynner, the power-obsessed king who stole the spotlight. One of the loudest clashes in 1960s Hollywood didn't happen on set, but at a glamorous Los Angeles charity event in 1964. It was a fundraiser for World War II veterans, where Lee Marvin was invited to speak about sacrifice. But as soon as he stepped on stage, Yul Brynner suddenly cut in, grabbing the microphone to promote his new film. Marvin, furious, slammed his glass down as the hall fell silent. The next day, the Los Angeles Times headlined, "Marvin and Brynner, 2 stars, 1 stage, 1 explosion." From then on, their feud was no longer rumor. Within the industry, Brynner was infamous for his obsession with dominance. On The Magnificent Seven, 1960, he demanded director John Sturges frame shots to make him stand out. When Steve McQueen drew attention with subtle gestures, Brynner allegedly retaliated by spreading stories of McQueen's wild lifestyle. Richard Harris later claimed Brynner spread false rumors to steal a Paramount role from him, leaving Harris humiliated. Brynner's private life was no less turbulent. In 1961, he was spotted in Paris escorting both Marlene Dietrich and a young dancer simultaneously. The scandal exploded when the women confronted each other at a party, while Brynner calmly walked away. The New York Post dubbed him a shameless collector of affairs. Later, he was rumored to have controversial relationships with much younger actresses, whispered about quietly in Hollywood. Perhaps most shocking was his public image versus reality. After being diagnosed with lung cancer, Brynner became the face of an anti-smoking campaign on American television in 1985, delivering tearful lines, "Don't smoke like I did." Yet those close to him claimed he never quit, often smoking more than the crew combined. A makeup artist from the 10 Commandments recalled he could light 3 cigarettes in a row, then step in front of the camera to preach about quitting. The contradiction cemented his reputation as insincere. Lee Marvin never hid his disdain. He once told Variety, "He doesn't act, he just waits for the spotlight to hit his bald head and stands like a statue. Going on TV to preach quitting while puffing backstage, that's the real him." Marvin saw Brynner not only as arrogant but deeply hypocritical. Brynner passed away in 1985, mourned by fans. But within Hollywood, his death closed a chapter that was both dazzling and dark. Hollywood has always been remembered as a land of legends. Yet through Lee Marvin's words, we see that behind the glow lay shadows of deceit, power struggles, scandals, and secrets never meant to be revealed. The 7 names he exposed not only shocked audiences, but raised the question, how many of the idols of the past truly deserved the worship they received? And you, after hearing the full story, who do you find the most infuriating figure? Share your thoughts below so we can discuss together. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to catch more untold Hollywood backstage secrets you've never heard anywhere else.